What is going on, Green Room? Welcome to the FBA panel show. Today we have Dan and Brandon here, and we're going to be talking to you about pretty much all things FBA, but a little bit more intermediate/expert level. And so I'll introduce Brandon first. Brandon, what is going on? You've been on a Green Room Hangout before, but this is a private show. What is going on, Brandon?
Not much. What's going on?
Not much. It's good to have you here. We also have Dan from West Coast, right?
No, Boston.
Boston. Oops. Why did I think you were West Coast? Okay, so the other way. Sorry. We have Dan from Boston. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thank you for your time today, by the way. We'll try to get through this content as fast as we can. So anyways, that's the basic introduction. You guys both do FBA, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. And, we have a little bit more of a traveler type FBA person with Brandon. We have a little bit more in-house local sourcing person like Dan in the house. And so we'll bring it all together here on the show with some important questions. So we're going to talk to the first question is going to be about the selling pie. If someone wants to look down at your selling pie, how much of it is FBA, Brandon? All of it?
All of it.
All of it. Dan, how about you?
Probably like 90 to 95%. I still do some eBay, so I have like 5%. And I do flip like snowboards and stuff on Craigslist, so there's still a little bit of that, but it's not too major.
Okay, so a large majority being FBA. So now of the FBA business, if someone was to take your FBA pie itself, what's the breakdown of retail arbitrage, private label, or wholesale? We'll start with Dan with that one.
Right now, since I came back from ASD, I've really cut back on my thrifting. So I'd say RA is like 60%, thrifting 30%, and maybe the rest wholesale. But I've only done a couple wholesale orders so far, but it's kind of getting, building up to it.
Okay, good. We're going to get into that wholesale part in the latter part of this broadcast. Brandon, how much of your FBA pie is retail arbitrage, private label, or wholesale?
It's all RA. All
RA. Yeah. So you're a very interesting case because a lot of people, both you guys are an interesting case because a lot of people, the joke is RA is dead and there's no money to be made. The restrictions are too high. And that's certainly not the case. You guys are doing good money. And Dan, you're about to leave you left a full-time job already, right?
Yep. This past Friday was my last day. So I guess yesterday was my first official day being full-time reselling. So
congratulations.
Nice.
Brandon, how did that feel day one when you did it?
It was exciting but scary at the same time.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just it's all on you at that point.
Yep. And Dan, you strike me as the kind of person who you're going to be able to do just fine at this. Like you have discipline. You strike me as the kind of person who's grounded. Have you worried about any of this kind of stuff early on in the game? Have you been going, what's my greatest thing going to be effective Monday when I go full time?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely nerve-wracking. Like Brandon said, you kind of lose your safety net of having the job and all the other stuff that goes with it. But yeah, I'm just trying to fill the gaps where previously I didn't have time to concentrate, on certain aspects of my business. So I'm going to kind of concentrate on that first and then kind of try to expand upon everything else from there.
That's right. And all the time that you could have been at work, now you get to do all kinds of stuff with your business, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. And Brandon has taken his, business to the road and about to take it to the road again, right, Brandon?
That's right.
Yep. So it can be done across cities, across America. RA, I don't think it's dead. So, but let's talk about how it's changed in the past year itself. Brandon, how has RA in your mind changed in the past year?
Well, obviously there's a lot of restrictions out there, and I've come across some things that, I could have bought for $30-$40 and made several $100s on it, but I had to pass on them because I was restricted, or I got those nasty little letters, before. So I wasn't restricted, but just getting the letters is enough for me, to be out of it on that. Yeah.
Dan, with all the restrictions, is it still fair to say that there's still places to play with Amazon FBA? I mean, you can still go around these restrictions and you can find other things to sell. Is that kind of how you're handling your business?
Well, for me, actually, I'm unrestricted on a lot of brands. So in the past year, the RA game has really gotten better for me in that regard. It's created less competition because so many people are gated in a lot of brands. So for me, it's kind of been the opposite effect where I'm able to buy more than, what the typical person can. So.
Okay. Have you taken any active steps to reducing the amount of restrictions that you have?
Just pretty much trying to get ungated as many as I can, and
Okay.
I've done that. So
Letters from other like actual manufacturers, or are you paying some of this $1,500 minimum, to get in? What kind of stuff are you doing here?
some of them you can just apply and you'll get approved. I guess it depends on your selling metrics and stuff like that. I was able to just kind of apply on like Nike, and they let me sell it.
So you applied to Nike. About how long ago did you do that? You do that one?
This is like a month or so ago.
Month or so ago. So your metrics must be pretty decent if Nike didn't say any money needed or anything like that. Did you have to go to any outlet stores and provide any kind of receipts or anything like that?
Nope. I haven't done a whole lot of shoes yet, but I've only place I bought Nikes from were Marshalls, and there's not a whole lot of, I don't think, backing as far as that goes there. So
Okay, very interesting. So let's talk about these restrictions real quick. Do you think, Brandon, does there seem to be a method to the restrictions? Like, I heard that Dan was talking about metrics and all that kind of stuff, but in your eyes, is it just kind of like they pick and choose certain people? Is it, if you've sold it before, you get to sell it, once it's restricted for most people, you get to sell it yourself? What are your views on that?
Yeah, I thought that the last one is, if you sold it before, you get to sell it again, and you're basically ungated in that item. But that's not true, because I've gotten restricted on certain items that I've sold in the past too. But and just like I know for one, the Nintendo Switch, which I was restricted on, and Jameson, which has been in I think selling on Amazon just as long as I have, and me and him have pretty good numbers, and he can sell it, or he could, last I knew, and I can't. So I have no. Like I said, I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason for it. It's, you get new sellers coming in that can sell stuff that sellers that have been on it for 4 years can't sell.
Interesting. Dan, do you concur with this statement that there is no method to the restrictions out there, and that sometimes new sellers can come in? What are your thoughts on that?
that does seem to be the case. It's kind of weird how there's no, like you said, no rhyme or reason as to why. I know some people who've been selling FBA much longer than me. And, I mentioned the gating thing, and I'm ungated in a lot of brands that they're not ungated in for whatever reason. And I know they have much better sales than me, better numbers, year to year. So I'm not sure why. I'm not going to argue with me getting ungated, but, it kind of seems random to me, I guess.
Okay. If you had to look at your gated pie or your ungated pie, would you say that you are ungated in 90% of the things out there, Dan?
Yeah, probably. Very few times I come across something that's gated. It'd be something like competitive, like, Apple watches or something like that. Fitbit, I'm not ungated in, but, aside from that, a lot of stuff that I do find a lot of people are gated in, I'm clear to go.
Okay. So with the Fitbit or the Apple Watch, have you attempted to become ungated in those categories?
No, I figure there's just so much already. I mean, if I come across some insane deal, maybe I'll try, but I'm not really too concerned about it.
Okay. So that's very interesting. Brandon, with yours, your ungating pie, would you say you're 60%, 80%, 90%?
Probably 90%. I would think 90%.
Okay, so for both of y'all, this is an interesting question. What part of your pie do you think, on the ungating part, really gives you a good edge on some of the competition? Would it be grocery? Would it be auto parts? Baby? What do you think? Brandon, with you first, what would be your edge, you think? Like, this is one thing that a lot of people are gated off. I'm ungated. This is a good thing for me.
Automotive.
Automotive. Okay, so auto parts are in. That's like spark plugs, belts, like all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Brandon? I mean, sorry, not Brandon. It's not Dan. What about you?
Probably like electronics and, phone cases, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you're big into electronics. I've noticed this because when we were at ASD, I bumped into you in the electronics segment.
Yeah.
Which was like close to the Japanese international segment. Go figure. But yeah, so you're big into that, and we're going to get into your wholesale stuff later. Not so much what you pulled the trigger on, but a little bit more the process of how you did it. So now let's talk about what do you think the biggest FBA opportunity is right now? Would you say it's private label? Do you think it's wholesale, or do you think it's RA? Brandon?
I don't know. I mean, there's probably all three of them are good. I mean, it's just which one are you really good at, and then just try to work on the ones that you're not. Like, I don't do private label and wholesale, but I'd like to get into it, but it's kind of hard to do that on the road.
Right. Oh, that's true. Yeah, but you're making RA work just fine as it
is.
Right?
Yeah, it's working. I mean, I mean, I don't. Who knows how long it's going to work? You know, Amazon's a deciding factor on that. So
Right. But it seems like you guys are doing just fine with the majority of the business coming RA style, right?
yeah.
Interesting. Dan, what do you think the next opportunity is with FBA? Do you think it would be private label or wholesale?
For me personally, it's wholesale. But I think private label is really the ideal way to go. You know, just owning your own brand and being able to control it is probably the best move. You don't have to worry about the restrictions and, you know, getting ungated or anything like that. So that's probably the best idea. And I'm actually kind of talking to a friend of mine who does a YouTube channel himself about possibly, you know, doing some private label items using his brand essentially and working together with that. But right now for me, it's wholesale. So I'm just trying to ramp that game up before I move into private label and do more research into it.
Yeah. So wholesale, if you do it correctly, might yield you the time that actually you can crack private label up with, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the RA thing is a little labor intensive. Brandon, you would agree with that, right? The RA does involve you to go to stores and boxes and all that kind of stuff, right?
Especially when you get into listing in your listing one item, you know, quantity of one, quantity of one, quantity of one. When you can start, you know, if I go out there and spend, you know, the kind of money I've been spending and buy it in volume and of one product, you know, say 10 products, but, you know, volume of each product. I mean, I could, as long as those were really good ranked, selling quick, you know, it's just, it would be so much more efficient that way, but it's just, it doesn't work like that with RA.
Right. So let's talk about how long do you kind of give RA, you think, Dan, in your eyes? Because I can, you know, maybe 2 years ago, people could say like, you know, the writing might be on the wall a little bit with some of the restrictions coming out and stores saying no resellers or random stuff like that. So what do you think, Dan? Like 2 to 5 years, RA gone, less, or always going to be around because Amazon needs people like resellers to help their business go around?
I kind of think that it might be more difficult for the newer people to do RA, but I think for those of us, you know, who do wholesale and purchase from outlet stores and have the receipts and everything, they'll still be able to do RA because they already have the proof that they can buy the stuff. So I would assume that it will still be a viable thing, you know, 2 to 5 years or whatever, just going forward, as long as the people have the information they need if necessary.
Right. And there's just so much demand for product out there that there's just no way that even the cream of the crop of the resellers could fulfill the amount of product that needs to go to Amazon to get shipped to Prime to all over the US. You know, Amazon, you know, a large portion of Amazon are people like resellers, you know, that have the daily, how do I say it? They can just go during the day when most people work, find items, send them to Amazon. You know, basically it makes Amazon's inventory high. And it's able to, you know, the Prime thing is sustainable because the inventory levels are all over these different warehouses across America, right? And people can get stuff in 2 days and stuff. So Amazon, I think, really, I don't know. It's hard. I wouldn't say it's hard to say, but like if you had to look at Amazon without resellers, do you think they could do it?
And I think it'd be very difficult. I mean, they'd have to do a lot more research into distributors and wholesalers and that kind of thing. And, you know, I can't imagine how many listings that regular sellers create that Amazon would have to. And a lot of times I'm sure that they don't even get on a listing for months, so that, you know, it's never being sold by Amazon. It's being sold by a third party until Amazon actually gets it. So I would assume that they wouldn't be able to, they're much more successful with third party sellers, basically.
Right. I agree. So the science behind restrictions, Brandon, why would a restriction even exist in the first place? Like, could you shed some light on that?
Possibly because it's been counterfeited in the past. And so, you know, the customers got the items and they complain. I got enough customer complaints on the item, or being poor design or whatnot, or the contacts Amazon. And I think Amazon may set up some deals with some of these brands to where they can be the only seller on that listing. And so they just restrict everybody. So they get it at a really good price. That's just, okay. I don't know. Those were a few things I think.
Dan, the science behind restrictions, if you were the big company, why would you even restrict?
I think a lot of it has to do, like Brandon said, with counterfeits and, you know, fakes and stuff like that. And even just, you know, something like a new edition of a toy, like, for instance, there was the Catan that was recently restricted for a short amount of time, because I would assume people were listing the new edition under the older one, which was worth more money. So I think stuff like that, people trying to skirt the game or skirt the rules to, make a little extra money, which is stupid, but it kind of hurts everybody in the long run. I think stuff like that, is basically, half the reason why they have to put restrictions up.
Right. Yeah. Restrictions are just one of those, when a market gets really, really efficient, there's always some people that try to exploit something very small or very large for a very small portion of time,
Yep.
And it ends up affecting, you're right, like the entire populace. That sucks. So let's talk about the tools that you use for RA. Any of you guys using the KDC the scanner?
Yep.
You're using it. Okay. What do you pair it up with? What's your
I use Android phone.
Okay, so Android phone, and then it's what's your actual? Are you going right off the Amazon? What are you using in the background to populate its actual stuff?
I usually will use FBA scan because I still do a lot of books, and I use it for the offline database.
Okay,
it's just really easy to use. You just scan. You don't have to hit the title field every time. But I still use the Amazon seller app just to check any kind of restrictions I might have as well. So
okay, so with books, there's really not that many restrictions, though, right?
Not that I've really come across. I know randomly I've read about some people getting restrictions, but I've never seen any.
But then when you go to a store and you're dealing with something that's a little bit more low rank or something that comes out of Walmart or Target or something, that's where you probably want to double scan it, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And you want to manually scan it anyways because fluctuations of price occur so fast with the lower stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, when I actually do RA, I have on FBA scan, I keep it on a live scan.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that's why I use the program is for the books or whatever. But yeah, so I always check the live prices when I'm scanning.
Interesting. So, someone like Brandon, when does RA, he's dealing with mostly new stuff, right? But then you, Dan, when you do RA with a KDC scanner, you are doing books, which are typically used, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So if someone was to look at your RA pie, like only the RA stuff that you send in, or not RA, sorry, but if someone was to look at your FBA pie, how much of that stuff would be new and used? What do you think?
Like I said, I've been cutting back from thrifting since ASD, but I'm kind of getting back into it now that I have more time in my day.
Right.
So it's probably like 60-40 RA to new RA to use thrifting stuff. So.
Well, it's fun to go out and get out, right? Like it's fun to find good deals, and even if you find the cream of the crop, the good deals, as long you can still be messing with used as long as you know your risk tolerances, right?
Yeah, and books are, for me, the books are really fun because there's always a demand for books, and textbook season comes, and I did really well on textbooks last year, so it really was able to give me a jump going into Q4. So I feel like it's something hard to look back from when there's so much money to be made.
Right. So someone like Brandon, you go into a store like a Target or a Ross, Marshalls, Walmart. You like Walmart a lot. We discussed this on our last hangout, but you're using just the Amazon seller app, right?
Yeah, the Amazon seller app. I mean, as far as, I use eBay too.
Okay.
The eBay app just to do a little research on the price and the sell-through rate on an item if it's not, it is kind of questionable on Amazon.
Sell-through rate. So you were looking for completed
new
listings, right? That sold past 90 days. Okay. And that does that help you look at the Amazon data differently if you do it that way, or you're still initially wanting to send it to Amazon, or are you looking on eBay because you're restricted on Amazon, for example?
Yeah, no. If it's just questionable on Amazon and I look and there's no keepograph for it, there's nothing on Camel, then and I'll just go to eBay and see if I can find it.
Yeah.
See what it's sold for. And if there's no sellers either, I can go to eBay and kind of get an idea of what it's sold for on eBay.
Interesting. And eBay has a scanner as well. Hopefully both of y'all know that. I think everyone knows that, but some people don't. But eBay has a scanner just like Amazon does, and it brings up the exact listing on eBay. Sometimes with the ratings and all that kind of stuff.
Does it work for every item? Like
most of the ones that I scanned
not every item, but it does work for a lot of UPCs though.
Yeah. It'll get you in the right kind of place at least, So if there's a variant, at least you're kind of close already with the data.
I think it pulls the data from what people are listing, right? So assuming somebody actually lists it with UPC, it should be there. So
exactly. Right. And then you can also check what's sold too. So it'll pull up current stuff that's selling and then You just look up solds, and then you would be able to see what Brandon is talking about. Is there some sort of sell-through rate going on? Is it really light? Is it, but that's an interesting way. So if you don't see the Keepa stuff that you need to see, you'll scan it with eBay. It's interesting. Okay, so Inventory Lab, App Eagle, Amazon. So let's talk about Inventory Lab and App Eagle. Either one of you guys use those two things?
I use Inventory Lab.
Both of them.
You use both of them. So you have Inventory Lab and App Eagle. He uses FBA Scan. You use App Eagle? Or is that, hold on, the App Eagle is the repricer, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the repricer.
So, yeah.
Okay, cool. And then your repricer's in IL, is it, Dan?
I use Repricer right now, but I'm actually,
okay.
I might be changing that pretty soon. I'm not really happy with how it's working.
Okay. What are the most, I mean, if someone was to look into repricers for FBA, what's the leading one out there that you guys have heard about?
I think Be Cool is one of the better ones.
BQOOL, yeah.
Yeah.
I use that one, and I switched to App Eagle, so I can't sit there and say I like them. They were the same as Reprice It. They would miss some of my my listings. They wouldn't reprice them, so I'd have stuff sitting there for months, and it wasn't getting repriced. So, but I went over to App Eagle, and they're a little bit more expensive, but I think they're better than the other two personally.
So you're an App Eagle. How many items in your inventory? About 2K, right? Something like that?
Now?
Yeah.
Oh no, I haven't done anything since May 1st, so it's went down. It's went down. It's probably 1,000 now. I got to get it built back up, but
once you get into the 2K, 3K category, App Eagle seems to work really well to manage that kind of inventory, right?
Yeah, I like it.
How much a month is it for you?
You can pay as little as I think 100. I think it's 100, but I pay 150. It depends on your items, the amount of items, but it's well worth it. I mean, I don't know about the other repricers, but those are like I said last week, those are adjusting like I think every 6 to 7 minutes, the prices.
Okay, Dan, how about your repricer?
I think it's $15 a month.
$15 a month.
Sure, yeah.
How many items
since I looked at it?
Average in your inventory? About
2,000.
2,000. Okay, so $15 a month, 2,000. Any hiccups with your repricer?
None that I've really come across, but I could do a better job of monitoring it, so I'm going to be looking into it more.
Yeah, Brandon and I talked about repricers the other day at Starbucks, and Brandon, the number one reason why a beginner, or not even a beginner, but an intermediate would want to get into a repricer, what is it, Brandon?
It's just time saver. Time saver is number one, but number two is you're going to get more sales too, as well.
Right. So if something's refreshing every 6 to 7 minutes, it's basically pinging into the marketplace, coming back, and just taking a snapshot look, and it's repricing it. And am I right about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about yours, Dan? Is yours right about the same time frame? Is it every 15 minutes, 30 minutes?
I think I have my schedule set up for just twice a day. And again, that's something I need to look into to hopefully boost it, I guess.
Okay. Life before a repricer, Dan. Can you see life before a repricer or not anymore? Like this is part of your business.
Yeah, there's no way I can go back to repricing. It's like Brandon said, it takes way too much time to do it, especially once you get past 1,000 items or whatever. I mean, you can't do that every other day. You'd rather be out either researching something or buying stuff. So
right, and you said researching something. That's pretty cool because you do some research for the wholesale stuff too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. We're going to get to that in 1 second. So let's get to at what point, while we're still on the repricer thing, at what inventory level, Dan, did you pull the trigger on the repricer, or was it just a kink and a constraint in your time that you were like, all right, that's it. Like there's got to be an easier way. What was it?
I don't think it was necessarily the amount of inventory. It was the time. I got my repricer, not this past Q4, but the one before that in middle of November where, I was still working at the time and, just didn't have time to check every day what the prices are. And you know how quick prices can fluctuate during Q4. So I wanted to get the stuff out the door. So I had to, kind of take the fall there and just get it going so I can move some stuff.
Learning curve for a repricer for you, pretty quick learning curve, easy?
Yeah, it was pretty easy for the most part. There's a lot of videos on Reprice It. And, I think Rakin did a couple little things about it too. So I was able to kind of mold what I was doing off of what he had.
Okay, so Reprice It's the one you use, $15 a month, and then Brandon, you use App. What is it called again?
App Eagle.
App Eagle, and it's about $150 a month. I see a pretty big discrepancy there between the two prices. Hopefully they're doing what you guys need them to do. You have used Reprice It before, you said, or right? And Brandon, you said that something happened, right? And it actually cost you money, did it?
Well, it reprices. I think they give you like 8, if I'm trying to remember, because that was the first one I used. I think they give you like 8 to 10 time slots, I think, that you can use, so your price will change 8 to 10 times a day. I think that's how it used to be set up. And but it wasn't catching all of my listings that I had on there, so it wasn't repricing everything.
Interesting.
So,
and you told me that your repricer actually updates all the time too, right? It's always updating.
Yeah,
and it's always like efficient.
Yeah, it's moving pretty quick. So
yeah, interesting. Okay. So let's talk about now into a retail arbitrage category that's not super filled with competition that you really enjoy selling in. Dan, we'll go with this question to you. It's a category that you're like, oh, you know what, this is a good category. I'll stay a little bit more in the store for this category. I enjoy selling in it. What is it?
Probably, like I mentioned earlier, like higher end electronics.
Higher end electronics. So this is not the small cheap stuff. This is what do you mean by higher end?
Like this, for instance, I just bought a bunch of whatchamacallit, it's like higher end, like 360 camera accessories and stuff like that. Right. I know a lot of people are gated on that brand or whatever. So just based on, there's only a couple listings on Amazon, so being able to take advantage of that is good.
Okay. When you say also when you're saying higher end, is a little bit more of a price tier jump too, like lower end electronics be 200 and lower. Higher end stuff is more like, drones and 360 cams and just random stuff like that.
A lot of it's like not necessarily me buying the higher end priced items. It's just the accessories that might go along with those items.
Oh, okay, good. What about you, Brandon? What's a category that you kind of stay a little bit longer in the store and you scan a little bit more in that one category because you like it so much?
I would say there's probably 2, but if I had to go with one, I would say lawn and garden.
Lawn and garden. Okay, that's interesting. Don't you? So I guess the last lawn and garden thing that I ever messed with was like some granules that like eliminated certain pests on the grass. And I'm surprised that thing was not that thing was even like allowed to be sent in because it's essentially chemicals, right?
I was gonna say, is there a lot of hazmat stuff in the garden?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I was noticing some of that around lawn and garden.
So I don't know. I don't have any experience with it.
Yeah, I don't mess with any of that stuff or the liquids or anything like that.
So when you say lawn and garden, so give us an example of like a stereotypical product that you have hustled before.
Spray wand.
Spray wand. Okay, cool. Oh, that's pretty neat. So I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there. So a spray wand, I was thinking like the end of like a weed eater, right? Like there's so many different ends to them. You can fit them.
Yeah, but lawn and garden's full of stuff. I mean, just go over there and just you'll see.
Cool. Yeah. So when I think of lawn, I mean, I'm surprised I was able to even sell that one thing. So that's interesting. Okay. So good. Lawn and garden. Does that still a good thing that you can go to Walmarts and Home Depots and Lowe's for? Because if you like that department, do you go to other stores looking for it too?
Yes and no. It just depends on what the product is. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any kind of closeout things in lawn and garden when it comes to Walmart, for example? Do you ever see stuff like that?
Yeah, there's closeouts in Walmart. There's closeouts in Home Depot, and lawn and garden just depends on the time of the year.
Yeah.
Okay. Seasonal thing.
Interesting. So we're not talking about stuff like off spray or anything like that. When the chemicals are involved, usually it's hazmated, right?
Oh yeah, I don't even bother to scan the chemicals.
Just random stuff. Okay. So let's talk about now where exactly do you guys primarily source from? I mean, let's start with Dan. Big box stores, of course, right?
Yeah, so mostly big box stores.
Mostly big box stores. Okay. Any liquidations for you or closeouts or
no?
Things like that?
There are a few. Whatchamacallit? Not Costco, but Ocean State job lots and stuff around. But I've never really had a lot of success at those places. So.
Okay. Have you guys ever done a Walmart closeout? A Walmart closing down? Let me ask you this. This is more of a joke, but like, have you guys ever done one of those before?
No.
They're atrocious.
I missed it.
If someone says go, like it is the most insane shopping experience you'll ever have in your entire life. I've been to one, and I could not wait to leave because there were like just like lines of carts everywhere, and people just like tearing the whole store apart.
I was at a Kmart one like that, but like
Oh,
you
you
said,
were?
it's a nightmare.
It is insane, man. I could
Most
not
of the
believe
stuff
it.
was junk by that point anyway.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, it was hard for me to even find. It took me like 15 minutes to find a cart to even stroll around because like all the carts were taken. So so with you, Brandon, big box stores, have you ever done a liquidation or a closeout or anything like that, Brandon?
Yeah, I hit the Radio Shacks.
Okay.
Not this time around, but the first time around when
Okay.
they were closing back. That was, and then after that, sometime it was I don't know, probably a little while after that, they restricted all the routers and stuff. So kind of Radio Shack, I went in a few of them here lately, and they kind of they're overpriced. The first, router is $180 in Radio Shack, and it sells for 120 on Amazon. So you've got to wait until it gets down to like 30% before you can even buy it. But by then it's already gone. So
yeah, I find that some of the, when I dealt with retail arbitrage big box stores, I found that resets were an interesting thing too. When like a store, and happens a lot in the electronics department for some reason, because electronics is always one of the fastest changing type of thing out there. But I found that when like the targets would go through resets, like that was a really good opportunity to get closeout phones and all kinds of weird stuff. Like reset meaning like they're resetting the store maybe to put in this 360 VR experience or the next, Switch Mario, TV with the controllers there so the kids can play. But it's like a reset. Like they reset the entire department like a year ago. I don't know if you noticed that, Dan, but there were all kinds of stuff like cameras on deal, like. So I find that resets are a good, any kind of like catalyst, I guess, some sort of catalyst involved. If you see it at one store, it's really important to look at other stores and start wondering, gosh, I wonder if this is happening to other stores. And what I figured out is over the course of the 3 weeks is that they were doing their resets. They all had deadlines. And depending on when you went to the Target, you might be right there in the reset, like when it's going on. And like they're just pulling those crazy products out and liquidating them. Because I think in the start, when I went to Target and did that reset thing, they were liquidating a lot of their digital phones, like cordless phones that come with like 4 phones in one, which I don't even know why people have phones anymore. It's just bizarre, right? It's just like antiquated technology. But I found that a lot of those phones were like, $20-$30 and they were selling for 80, 100 sometimes. Crazy deals with the worst model numbers you've ever seen in your entire life. Like Panasonic has the worst model numbers you'll ever see on a product. It's so complex. It's like a serial number. But yeah, I was interested about the liquidation type stuff because I've never done a liquidation, but I've always been kind of intrigued by it. And then liquidation meaning like they start at a certain amount and then they kind of progressively, right, get down to a certain level. I think Sports Authority went through this. Am I right, Dan or Brandon?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was Sports Authority. Yeah, I also went to Hastings too. I forgot about
Hastings. Yeah, there's another one too.
But
yeah, they start at a certain level and then they kind of progressively go down as the weeks go down. So that's interesting. Let's talk about supplies. Something real basic here. Brandon, you're a little bit more on the road, so supplies come from Walmarts and random stuff, right? Tape, boxes.
Yeah.
If you're on the road, you're buying it from there. Someone a little bit more established and has a home base like Dan, where do you get all your supplies for? Are you just going to Amazon Prime? Are you going to eBay to get in supply? Are you doing, what's the Uline?
I buy most of my supplies from eBay, like tape and labels, poly bags, that kind of stuff. Boxes I usually get from either the Lowe's down the street from me or a Home Depot, but I'm eventually gonna have to just start getting it delivered. It's kind of a hassle sometimes, and not having boxes when you need them sucks.
That's true. So that's where you're getting your supplies from. Brandon is about to go hit the road again in an RV, so you're just going to be in the same situation again, right? Just buying boxes wherever you can get them.
Yeah, but I'm going to buy them in bulk because sometimes Walmart's out and there's not another one for
that's
an
true.
hour and a half, and so it's not fun.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. So you're just running around with all this inventory in your car that you could produce, that you could actually get out, but you can't, right?
Oh yeah, I've had that happen before. Yeah, because there wasn't even a Home Depot or anything. I mean, there was nothing around. Nobody had boxes.
Man, you didn't go dumpster diving at that one point and just go, you know what, I'm going to find a box in this town anywhere?
I guess I could have. I wasn't that desperate.
Try the grocery stores. They got those egg boxes that they bring in. Those are pretty
Furniture
decent.
stores have a lot of big boxes in the back too.
Yeah.
Pottery barns, stuff like that. So let's talk about scaling your business to allow for more sales to roll in, if you came down to a number one piece of advice to newer sellers out there that are cleared for FBA, they're cleared for a lot of things RA, what would be your number one advice, Dan, to scale your business so more sales could roll in?
Oh man, I would just say scan as much as you can. This is the only way to really learn about what's going to sell is by scanning it yourself and having the experience of doing it. You could watch all the videos you want and have people tell you, oh, this will sell for this if you go look for it now, but you won't get that experience of learning what might sell just by looking at it before, even knowing you have to scan. It's like Brandon said, he doesn't even bother scanning the off spray because, he's not gonna be able to send it in. So it's just those experiences of having it and knowing, I know I can't sell that. You can look at something and know it's cheap versus something that, it's got a little weight to it. So, it might be expensive, the whole Jurassic Park bit from the first movie. So I think just scanning everything, doing, as much research as you can in that regard is probably the best advice.
Okay. What about you, Brandon? To the people out there that are brand new or watch this show, it's the number one piece of advice you could give them for newer sellers to get their sales to start rolling in.
Take every penny you have, profit, everything, and put it back in your business. Don't take any for yourself. And other than just to pay your bills, and if you're starting out, you shouldn't be doing it full time anyways. But
yeah, and you did it. You were a police officer behind the scenes, and you were making your income and more with retail arbitrage, and that's why you made the jump, right?
Oh yeah. I started making 3 times more whenever I quit my full time job.
That's crazy, man. And then you, Dan, you just recently left, but there had to be a point now where you're like, this is going to work, right? Like I don't need to be at a job every day of my life. Like this could be my job, right?
Yeah, I feel like I could have left my job a year ago, but I just wanted a more stable start to my full-time reselling, I guess. And I really enjoyed doing my job anyway, so it kind of made it hard to leave in that regard. But when I got my taxes back, a month and a half ago or whatever, I saw the numbers. I basically made as much doing, RA and everything part-time as I did in my full-time job. So it kind of became a no-brainer at that point.
Yeah, definitely. And then you just take the time you would have worked and just apply it, even half of it, to more hustling, and you would do better. But that's one of the interesting things about working for yourself is there's going to be those internal battles. And I guess, Dan, you're about to figure that out. Brandon knows what I'm talking about. They're just you battle yourself at that point. There's no more boss over your shoulder or quotas or you got to get this done at a certain time. It's just you in life, right, Brandon?
Yep, you're your own worst enemy.
It's true, man. I think there's a song by Lit. Isn't there a song by Lit? Okay, I know you being in the skate culture, Dan, that you would know. There's a song by Lit called My Own Worst, right? Something like that?
Something sounds familiar about it.
Yeah, anyway. Okay, so let's talk about wholesale. This is a little bit more for Dan on this one. Your initial impressions with wholesale after you dove into it a little bit.
I think finding the right distributor is very important. I've only made a few purchases so far, and the first one I made, it came from California, and shipping is going to kill you on that if I'm all the way on the East Coast. So I think finding not only the right people, but where they're coming from, and obviously the right product. I've had mixed results so far, but it's still so early that I'm not really sure.
Okay.
But I think it's just finding the right distributor and forming a relationship is kind of going to be real key going forward.
Okay, when you got this first item, and then you said shipping killed, because you can imagine going from so now that has to be rolled into your product's price overall and everything like that, and then your ROI, your initial impressions on the ROI on item number 1, for example. Do you still have any of that in your inventory? Yes or no?
Yep, some of it. Some of the items came in case back, where it was like a variety of 2 of these items, 1 of this item, 1 of this item.
Okay.
And of course, the 2 of the item in the case pack are crappy sellers, so it's basically half of that case pack is not very good, or it's gonna be a loss essentially. But yeah, it's kind of just swing and miss at this point right now.
Okay, but the initial ROI that you kind of were hoping for, what is it, like 50, 40? 30?
I was shooting for 50, but I know with the expectation that it would go lower.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess for the first few, if I break even, I'm not, going to be totally mad about it, just for the experience and, being able to figure this whole thing out. But, obviously I want to try to shoot for much higher going forward. That way it make my time, really worth it.
Okay. Did you have to do manual searches off the wholesale pages to find these items, or did you have a tool that allowed you to cross-reference this stuff really quickly and allow you to show you guys, like, this is the one, the 5 to look at right here?
I use tactical arbitrage. I just started using it pretty much when I got back from ASD, so I've been using that to kind of scan anything that I get from a wholesaler.
Okay, cool.
And I have been working with somebody else in the green room too about our particular wholesale orders going, closer to him or closer to me. We've been kind of working together and packing each other's shipments and sending them out from, our location. So I think making a relationship like that is definitely important as well.
Yeah, because if you can reduce the shipping, then that's just a huge piece of the puzzle. That just goes right in your pocket.
Right.
Would you say wholesale is a viable way to see some more sales? I know you said it's only about 10% of your entire FBA pie, right? If not less, right?
Yep.
How much more different or passive is it than RA? Like your initial kind of like what you've seen so far, how different is this than RA to you?
I think it's going to be huge. Just being able to sit at home and do orders, doing the research for it will be very big. Particularly if you can find a replenishable that you can consistently order from a wholesaler. And, eventually, just talking to a lot of wholesalers, some of them will send directly to Amazon for you.
That was my next question.
In that case,
that was going to occur.
I think the ideal thing I'd want is to not even have to touch the items. The first few orders I might make with someone, just quality control, checking it all out. But if we get to a point where they can send it directly to Amazon or, a prep center maybe, then I'm definitely game for that. And it will make my life so much easier.
Right. So that's very interesting. Some wholesalers will do direct to Amazon. You've heard about this? This does exist, you're saying, right?
Yep. I talked to a bunch of wholesalers at ASD that told me they do exactly that.
Wow.
A small fee per item or whatever, kind of like Amazon does when they label stuff. But, if you're saving 2-3 hours or, 2-3 hours of an employee's time, then why not?
So who becomes the prep center at that point? Is it going to go to Amazon, get prepped there, or are they going to prep it and then send it to Amazon and it's already done? Like, how do you explain that to me a little bit?
I guess it depends if you want to do commingled or if you want to just have it labeled.
I've heard some terrible things about commingled.
So have I, but I've also, most of the terrible things I've heard about commingled are just in like kind of more anonymous forums and stuff. But I've talked to, people in person and they say, all I do is commingled. I'm never going to go back to not doing commingled. So I guess it kind of varies from person to person and how it goes. But I think that I believe that if a lot of the distributors, they will, if it's case packed, they'll just put the labels on the case pack itself. And then, maybe Amazon will label it. But I'm not exactly sure. I guess it could vary from place to place.
But that's definitely a way that wholesale could be drastically different than RA. Like what you're kind of alluding to that is like, if there's a way that I could not even touch this stuff, now I'm at home doing research, not even touching the items that come in and just making deals, right? It could get efficient pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, big time.
Very interesting. So tactical arbitrage is what you use right now. That seems to be what a lot of people are using, right?
Yep.
TA, right.
Yeah, it's getting pretty popular.
Yep. Okay, so let's go to both of you guys on this question. Private label, we talked about this in the very beginning of the show. There are a couple questions left and we'll be done with the show here. But private label, any of you guys looking into it? And then your initial impressions or categories that you might be interested in selling in. So we'll start with Brandon on that one. Are you looking kind of in a private label down the road one day, Brandon?
Yeah, down the road, not right this second, but yeah, down the road.
Okay. So one of the things that you are kind of into with your friend is the vaping thing, right?
Yeah.
And that could be a big thing, or even like the cotton things that are in there, or even the glass bezels. I mean, there's a billion different things and ways that you could attempt private label with the vaping industry, right? Is that something that would interest you going into private label for, or are you just talking about really just doing your own thing, Brandon? What do you think?
Yeah, I'll probably just do my own thing on that.
Okay.
As far as the private label stuff.
And just putting your brand to it and everything, right?
Yeah. Kind of like how you're doing. I mean, my own thing.
I got an idea for all of us. it's a fork, but on the other side is a spoon. That's the winner, guys.
How is that not out yet? I can't believe that.
No, it'll be a triple. It'll look like a Chinese star, except it'll have a fork, spoon, and a knife. Anyway, boy, wouldn't that suck if that just starts coming out. So let's talk to Dan about this. Initial impressions or categories you might sell in. I know that you're thinking about doing private label, like sometime down the road, right? It sounds fun, right, to own your own thing. What are your initial impressions or categories that you might think about selling into? Because you said you had a friend, Dan, right, that you're talking with?
Yeah, my friend who does YouTube videos, like gaming channels and stuff, and he's got a pretty good following. I've been trying to bother him for a long time to get involved with like merch, because he was able to sell a ton of Teespring shirts, like just by saying, hey, I have shirts for sale. You know, they flew off the shelf. So I've been trying to get him into merch, and then I realized, hey, I'm actually also ungated in or approved for Amazon Custom. So I can probably figure something out like that. Like he wants to put his name on like, you know, toothbrushes and stupid stuff like that, like pillowcases. So like if we can do stuff like that, I mean, I'm all for it. And it'd basically be like, you know, me doing the work, but he's doing all the advertising, the branding. So that's completely cool with me. And this is someone I've known since like 6th grade. So if we can make something like that work, I'm all for it.
And it comes from Amazon, so you know it's going to be fast.
Right, yeah. That's the most ideal thing, yeah.
Yeah, speed to market's a big thing out there now. I mean, that's the reason why Prime is like killing everything. People want their things now, you know?
Yep.
Very interesting. Brandon, as a full-time Amazon seller, what are your takeaways to share with Dan on, because he just recently became full-time, but what are some takeaways you could share with Dan on this? Give 3 tips to Dan, who just went full-time this past Monday.
I wrote it down.
Oh, Dan, there you go, man. Here we go.
The first one I would say is, it's kind of 2 parts, but it's balance and patience. I would say balance in your life with your business. Don't go 100 miles an hour into your business. I mean, bust your butt, but at the same time, don't burn yourself out. That's kind of what I did last month. But so just kind of balance yourself. Keep your your other social activities and stuff like that. Keep that going. But this is for anybody too that's doing it full time. But and then patience. I mean, it's gonna. I was wanting to make $30,000 in 2 weeks, but it wasn't going to happen. It wouldn't. When I went full time, it took some time to build up, and I think if it takes some time to build up, it's a lot harder to tear down versus just building it up overnight. Number 2 is pay yourself as little as possible. Put everything else back into your business that you can to turn in profits. And number 3 is self-discipline, and gets a lot harder working on your own. Nobody, you can have an alarm clock, but at the end of the day, you're going to answer to yourself. You don't have to give your boss some reason why you were late or why you didn't come in or whatever. But that's you got to look at it and say, I'm losing money by not doing anything today, and sometimes you need that. I mean, I wouldn't say go work every day, but you just have to have a lot of self-discipline and get out of bed as soon as that alarm clock hits. So that's something I'm trying to work on, is starting to get up at 4:30 in the morning like I used to when I was in the military. And yeah, it's hard to do, but if you can get it, and I think the biggest part of it is just getting up and getting out of the bed and starting, and just starting to go. Because once you do that, you get your day started, and it's how you start your day. A lot of people say it too, but how you start your day is a big part of how it's going to end.
I like that. Good stuff, man. So I will thank you. That's pretty much the end of the show. Thank you so much, Brandon, for that amazing insight, because that is really good stuff, especially number 3. I really like your number 3. But thanks, Dan. Thank you, Brandon, for being here on the show. Any last words for the people that might watch this out there?
Go make that money.
All right, Dan?
Yeah, just keep hustling, because, just like anything in life, no one's going to hold your hand and help you. So you got to look out for yourself. There you go. Hopefully you guys found some great value in this show. We'll see you on the next Green Room show. Take it easy. Goodbye.